Welcome back. You're still tuned into Midcap Radar on CNBC-TV18. Well, Deepak Fertilizer, that's the stock on our radar. The stock has been buzzing this week. It's up 11% and a lot is happening in the chemical space as well. We've seen an increase in prices, chemical prices. A lot is happening as far as the Chinese demand is concerned as well. So let's understand this from the management of Deepak Fertilizers. What's the business outlook going forward? Mr. Sailesh Mehta, the Chairman and Managing Director of the company, is joining us now. Mr. Mehta, thank you so much for joining us today. And speaking with us. We have been talking to a lot of chemical companies. Quarter 1 has not been so good for the sector as a whole. There was a lot of volatility. As a person who's been in the industry for so long, first, what has your experience been in times like this? And how has quarter 2 been versus what we saw in quarter 1? Has there been an increase in pricing? And is it demand-led, or is it just because we've seen changes in crude prices and raw material prices?
Sure. I'll just explain. So I'll take you from a broad macro perspective and then micro perspective. So that will give you a good idea. So at the macro level, as you all know that during the COVID period, there was a huge upswing because of, the supply chain issues and things of that kind. And now, as what we had also predicted, some time back, that the pendulum swing is coming back to the long-term averages. Currently, at the macro level, we still have an impact, some degree of an impact of the Russia-Ukraine war and, the Russian dumping into India, because India is, I would say, a good territory, whereas Russia has been facing sanctions from the other countries. But if you look at it at a micro level, at Deepak's level, and which is much more focused on the chemical fertilizer sector, that we were actually seeing a swing clearly come back, that let's say ammonia from 51,000 odd, which was there in 22, went up to around 82, and then it's now coming back to around 43, 44,000. And, it's in a bullish kind of a state. Phos acid in that sense, 82,000 went up to 134,000 odd, and it's back to around 84,000. And similarly, in case of our finished good pricing, our technical ammonium nitrate, which goes in the mining sector, which we were at around 46,000 odd in 22, went up to 75,000 odd in the COVID year, and it's back to around 44 odd. Similarly, the acids around 36,000 went up to 54, back to around 39 odd. Now, that's at a micro level, but from a strategic perspective, if I may share, that what we saw was that despite the huge price hikes that we had to bring in our finished product during the COVID year, surprisingly, we saw that there was no demand destruction, and which validated very strongly that all our three businesses are beautifully aligned to the India growth story, meaning fertilizers with the agriculture need, the food security, or the mining chemicals linked to coal mining, limestone, cement mining, and infrastructure. And so also the industrial chemicals in terms of the play that India has in the pharmaceutical sector in the world. So that's one aspect that we are seeing. The second that we are seeing is that we have been able to very well bring in a certain kind of a price pass-through that is between raw material and finished products. So that is holding us in a good steam. The second is the key raw material that we have, ammonia. Now, as you're aware that, we have set up a project to cater to our total needs of ammonia. So it's a 500,000 tons of ammonia project that we have set up, a world-scale plant. So now, as far as ammonia goes, the price volatility will be contained within the group. And the third is, as far as the fertilizer side goes, the government is now very cognizant of these price swings, and they are coming up very quickly with fixed subsidy changes, which can make sure that, these cost changes are insulated for the industry. And for the farmers, they get fertilizers at a reasonable price. So that's the broad spectrum of raw material to finished product.
Mr. Mehta, you very beautifully explained the long-term swings that we've seen in prices pre-COVID to the COVID highs and now how they're mean reverting. But just to zero in on the current environment, the prices in Q1 were much lower, the raw material prices, right? That impacted your output because you've largely achieved, a pricing pass-through, as you indicated. Now, from the Q1 levels, we've seen some uptick in prices. Could you elaborate a little bit more? What's been the quarter-on-quarter increase that we have seen?
So we are seeing, and of course, different raw materials have a different kind of swing. But we are seeing that gradually now with Q2 and Q3, we are coming back to the long-term average, which we had seen in FY22, both in terms of the raw material as far as, and also in the finished product. So to that degree, it's coming back to an even keel as far as the volatility that we were seeing.
Okay. So are we seeing, so when you said earlier that it was largely led because of change in raw material prices, but demand remains intact. In fact, you expect it to improve going forward.
Sure, absolutely. And because all the three sectors, as I said, that since they are interlinked with the India growth story, we are finding a very positive traction in all the three sectors that we are in.
Okay. So when you talk about the three sectors or the three segments, I just wanted an update on the demerger as well. You announced it back in December 2022. You were giving an idea of how these three segments could be listed separately as well. Where are we in terms of demerger? What is the plan with listing as well?
So we are in the last leg of the NCLT approvals, and we are expecting that even before the Q3, these processes will be over. And with that, like I shared, we are seeing very clearly two dimensions emerging from a strategic perspective for the restructure. One is from an internal perspective, we will be very strongly focused right from the top board level to the lowest officer, focused on that specific business segment. So that is going to bring in a lot of advantages. And second is from the outside in perspective, even for the investor profiles, including strategic investors and all, that there will be a very strong industry-based focus for the corporate sector. So we are looking forward to structuring, panning out.
You said on the fertilizer side, the government is cognizant of the price swings. They're looking to introduce fixed subsidy. How will this impact you directly? Can we now start expecting, a more stable quarterly revenue run rate for you? What would that number then look like? Will it help bring down the receivables, if any? Can you outline 2 or 3 things in which this would directly affect your fertilizer segment?
Sure. So again, 2 aspects, one macro, one micro for Deepak. At the macro level, for us and the industry, these swings that come in with the global raw material price changes are getting reasonably well taken care of by the fixed subsidy changes. Of course, what ends up impacting is only the material that is there in the inventory pipeline. That is where the industry sometimes gets a hit. But those also the government is taking cognizance of. At the micro level, in case of Deepak Fertilizer, in all our 3 sectors and specifically in the fertilizer sector, we are bringing a transformative change. What we are doing is instead of looking at purely a commodity offering of NPKs or DAP or any of such things, we have moved over the last 3 years to bring in crop-specific nutrients. So instead of standard NPK, SSP, DAP or something, we are saying cotton-specific or sugarcane specific. And it is, a combination of NPK plus the micronutrients. So it's a very balanced fertilizer that we have been bringing in. And that is something that is having a very, very positive traction over the last 3 years that we have seen. Not only it has, brought, I would say, real advantages to the farmer beyond yield, even in terms of the quality of the produce. And that has allowed us a certain price premiums, a certain kind of customer stickiness. So that is something different at the micro level that we are bringing.
Okay, so that is a story which a lot of investors are watching out for as well, right? This transition from commodity to specialty that the company is making as well. Last question before we let you go, I would like to understand more from a micro and macro perspective. You've been on a capex spree as well. You had capex plan in ammonia and TAN. Can you give us a sense of how much of it is left and what is the gross debt right now?
Sure. So again, just very quickly at the strategy level, we were looking at 2 things. One is to take advantage of the, beautiful alignment with the India growth story for all 3 of our businesses. We said, let's leverage that. And the second is we leverage in terms of our 40 years of solid experience end to end for all these 3 products. So there, based on that strategy, we had earlier taken up tripling our capacities for the fertilizer sector. Then we took up nitric acids. Now, ammonia has just been commissioned, which is the key raw material for all the 3. So now what we have in hand, still in the process, in the midway kind of a thing is, we are adding capacity in technical ammonium nitrate. which is going to be good for the whole mining sector, coal, limestone, and others. We have taken up an additional, growth in the acid business, riding upon, again, a very strong current from the customer base. So as we speak, while the ammonia project and others have been commissioned, currently what we have in hand is the technical ammonium nitrate project, where the outlay is around 2,200 crores.
Right. Okay.
And the acid, which is around 2,000 crores odd.
Okay.
So, yeah, broadly in terms of the debt, we could be looking at somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 crore in terms of, depending on the year. And with a very healthy debt equity ratio, very healthy net debt to EBITDA ratios, we are very well placed, comfortably placed for all the CAPEX growth programs.
Okay. All right, Mr. Mehta, thank you so much for joining us and explaining to us the industry dynamics and what caters to Deepak Fertilizers as well. The stock has been doing well, is at the day's high, 1.5% higher on Deepak Fert. We'll do one thing, slip into a short break, and when we come back, we'll track more stock-specific news and markets as well. Stay tuned.